All right, guys, let's get this party started. I've seen a few people talking about Bobby Lee. I actually saw an Oopaville video go up, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna check this one out," because I know some of the story, and I really don't like this guy, and I'll get into it as time goes on. But Oopaville's video is taken down. I don't know if he took it down or YouTube took it down or what. And I looked under Oopaville's community notes. It looked like YouTube might have taken it down. I don't know. But anyway, let's do this one from Pegasus. More Pegasus. I love the Hercules movies. Anyway, if any point in this video resonates with you, timestamp it down below. Funny, smart, not that I ever am, whatever. Anyway, let's get this going.
Okay, so we gotta talk about Bobby Lee. So for context, last video we were talking about the Logan Paul George Janko situation. We're basically on Logan Paul's.
Yeah, apparently they did a lot of. I saw a little bit of that. They did a lot of cuts in that video that made Bobby Lee a much worse person, or come off as a much worse person. Which, you know, who's surprised? And apparently the reason why they did a lot of these cuts is because they wanted to make Bobby Lee happy so he'd come back on the show. You know, and to some extent I get it, but I think that he's a deplorable person. Yeah, I loved him on Mad TV too. I used to like him a lot. But
podcast impulsive George Janko was allegedly sexually assaulted by Bobby Lee. Now Logan removed that segment from the podcast, humiliated George.
I think he was constantly grabbing at him, you know, and he thought it was a funny joke.
And threatened to fire him if he didn't apologize to Bobby. So I had to look further into the situation to understand what kind of a person Bobby Lee is.
Yeah, I watched that conversation that they had. I watched the conversation that George had with the other guy. Was his name Mike? And it was interesting where he talked about they talked about a lot of that situation.
And after going through a lot of Bobby's clips, I think I can safely say that Bobby has always been a creep, and this is kind of just normal behavior for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's because he's a small little man, and people don't take him as threatening. Listen, here's my thing, and I know people always complain about this. Well, not always. Well, there's people who always complain about this. I stopped liking Bobby Lee the second that I saw the continuous joke that he had. I believe it was the Tijuana story, and the joke was that I think it was Tijuana. He went there when he was younger, and he saw a girl, and he was I think he was in his 20s, and he saw a girl who looked like Natalie Portman from The Professional, a 13-year-old girl, and he chose her as the prostitute he was going to sleep with. He went to do it. She started crying, so he power fucked her. So his story is like a joke about how he violently raped a 13-year-old. And for me, man, that was it. I don't think it was just a joke. A lot of people like myself, I'll use jokes that use some of my real life into it. And you know what I mean? Maybe you sensationalize it and whatnot. But I don't think it was a joke after watching it. I just don't think it was a joke. You can if you want. That was it for me. I think that he's a disgusting person. I think he did that. He looks like the kind of person that would do that. The way that he acts, his behaviors, he's like a deplorable, degenerate person. 1,000% believe that he did that. That's it. So that's where I've been. I no longer have any charitability for Bobby Lee. That joke went on for years. His explanation is oh, it was on Opie and Anthony and they were edgy. Just no. I think he did it. That's it. I'm not calling for his arrest. I'm telling you that I'm never gonna. When I see him on social media, I just cruise right past it. I truly think he's a disgusting loser. So yeah, that's where I stand with Bobby. I think he's a fucking scumbag. Thank you so much for the $5 from Michael Pham, one of the first Asian Americans I saw growing up. Same with you on Mad TV. But for the past years, man, he's cringe for me, bro. Cringe for Asian Americans, I guess. You know, I don't group him in as an Asian American. I know he's Asian, but yeah, I liked him. I thought he was funny on Mad TV, and I just think he's a disgusting person now. That's just where I'm at. So.
And pretty much the only reason that he gets away with it is because he's a comedian and everything is supposedly a joke.
It's because he's so small. It's not just because he's a comedian. It's because he's. But that is part of it. But it's because he's a small little person. That's literally all. That's a big part of it. He's a small. If I was making the same jokes, people would fucking gun for me much harder. Or it's not even the jokes. It's the touching. It's the lack of boundaries. It's gross. You know,
right? Even thrusting your dick in someone's face, truly the best humor.
Yeah, what's going on here? It's locker room stuff.
So let's start with the portion.
And I think a big part of Bobby Lee's decline here, though, is that we've become a much more personal society. We'll say kind of personal, but impersonal, right? People let a lot of their lives out on the internet, and I do it too on my stream. And now people are really you have a big picture to paint. If it was just Bobby Lee coming on to a television show or whatever, or a movie every once in a while, you're just getting the most performative version of him. But when you see him on podcasts and do the rounds and do this and do that, you're starting to paint like a fuller picture, and people are like, oh, okay, like let's all connect all the pieces together. Like maybe this isn't all just an act.
Portion of the podcast that Logan actually left uploaded. Now you better save this, because I highly suspect in the next few days this clip might get deleted by Logan's PR team.
I don't smell good on my bottom because here's the thing is I'm single now, and I've been. You want to smell my?
One of us in this room will.
Yeah, smell my because I have no cologne here, but I spray the on my.
Wow, incredible! Thank you for the $10 from ATM at Love. Does it burn when you let it out? What kind of question is this? You fucking wow! Thank you for the $10.
Maybe Mike, you want to smell?
I would.
No, you are. No, you are.
No question.
I'm not gonna pull it out. I'm gonna just do the underwear.
Question.
It would be him. It would be George.
Yeah, George.
It would.
Yeah.
Like what?
Well, that's why I want him to smell.
Or maybe
yeah.
he'll know the smell too.
So don't worry about it, guys. I'm not gonna show my dick.
Smell.
Okay, so for obvious reasons, from this point on,
What an uncomfortable scenario to be in, because I would probably just punch the guy in the balls, But for these guys, it's a big business aspect, and that's why, George seems like he can be kind of sensitive, especially for somebody who, of my understanding, claims to be a comedian. And I think that you can leverage some reasonable criticisms against that, but at the same time, you guys should be protecting your own first. And I understand the concept of letting Bobby Lee get away with things, just from the perspective that he's a guest. You want him to come back on. If he starts complaining, even if it's behind the scenes, other guests may be less likely or less willing to want to come onto the show, because he can blah blah blah, crybaby bullshit. But I really think that they should have just set firmer boundaries against Bobby Lee, potentially even kicked him off the show. I mean, it's just the stuff is way over the line. It's just fucking weird shit.
I can only sort of show images and audio segments, but rest assured, Logan probably has the shit in 4K quality sitting on a hard drive somewhere. Okay, so after this, you can
Incredible.
probably...
Thank you for the 18-month small gut from Diabetic Survivor. Bobby Lee, more like Bobby P. Incredible. You're right, brother.
guess what happens. Here we have Bobby approaching George. The whole
with that nervous smile has on, fully locked eyes, not even looking at the whatever is going on in there.
time, Logan and Mike are egging this on. Conveniently, they don't want to do...
From what the little we saw, or at least I saw just now, it seemed like they were kind of nervous and embarrassed and just trying to deflect over to George.
Do it themselves, right? They explicitly say, let's let George do it, right? The one person they actually don't value at all. And obviously they won't do it themselves because...
I don't know if it's that they don't value him. Here's my thing. I have friend groups, and in one of my friend groups, we have this guy, and he's a good guy, but we fuck with him all the time. And it's just sometimes you have that friend in the friend group, and they're a little, maybe you've identified that they're a little bit less likely to defend themselves, and it's funny to antagonize them, and they sometimes get riled up by silly things, and then over time you slowly escalate, and you fuck with them a little more and more every day. Right now I'm in the process of screenshotting all of his Instagram stories and then posting them into our group chat and saying, hey guys, did you hear about this? Because he'll put up baseball news, and then everybody in the chat's like, oh no, we didn't. And we're slowly trying to gaslight him into thinking that he's fucking crazy. Because thank you for the small gut from Conrad Corball. I got a member comment, VIP comment. That's me. Hell yeah, brother. Thank you.
It's hecka weird and disgusting.
When we get more podcasts, that bro, I'm telling you, I could take that podcast and I can make that a fucking actual lucrative podcast, but he will not do it.
Here we have George trying to keep his cool with a pee-pee in his face, trying to get far away from it. Meanwhile, Bobby is there saying, smell it, get real close and smell it. Here we have some audio of George reacting to this, saying that it's okay, I'll smell it from far away.
Oh, did he actually pull his pants down?
But Bobby insists on bringing it closer.
No, smell. You got to smell it.
I just wafted.
Then after this, Bobby sort of gets
I wonder if Ubaville's video got taken down because it was very explicit here.
pissed and justifies it for entertainment.
Dude, this is not gay. It's podcasting. It's for entertainment.
It's material.
And in improv, you never disagree. Okay. You always agree.
Yes, and.
Because yes and you ruin the fucking moment if you don't do it. So you're going to fucking smell my dick. Okay. and it's not gay.
Amazing improv over here, just smelling another man's pee-pee, or, you know, smell it or you're ruining the joke, you're ruining the fun over here. And that's kind of the
I wonder what the general consensus is of like Bobby Lee in the comedy community. I would be curious about that.
vibe that was going on over there, where Logan and Mike were making George feel guilty for, like, you know, ruining the mood because Bobby didn't like him or whatever. And now Bobby is adding on to this, saying, George, you're killing the mood over here. And you can even sort of see Logan get a bit angry over here. He looks at George and look at what he says.
It's material, George.
Yeah.
It's material, George. It's just material that, you know, only you should do.
Yeah, I mean, this obviously the Drake picture. This obviously goes like pretty far past like any reasonable boundary, you know. And Bobby Lee is is a kid, so you could probably set that and be like, "Hey, you got to stop." You could probably do it in a funny way too. But yeah,
I don't want to do this material though, but you, George, you're the joke of the show. Just go with it.
I think if it was just this by itself, it'd already be off-putting. But it's just like the whole picture of Bobby Lee. It's just like it's like a disgusting person, you know.
Stop pissing off our guest Bobby. You're ruining the show. And I feel like Logan actually believes this, because that's kind of how messed up in the head Logan.
Well, yeah, of course he does. He's very business oriented, and then like it sounds like a compliment, but in this case, it's not, right? Sometimes you have to be more personal, especially on a more personal podcast. You know, where you have to set reasonable boundaries. But what I find funny here is that Logan, in my opinion, is very clearly irritated with George for not going along with Bobby Lee's, you know, sexual harassment. But just before, we saw him do his best to be like, "Oh, not me. Go, oh, George." Without George, you wouldn't have been able to pass the blame. So it's interesting. I mean, it's just an interesting dynamic that he scapegoats George, and then he doesn't appreciate that he just scapegoated George. I know it sounds like a silly, stupid thing, but it's just like, why? You know, it's one thing to scapegoat him and push him over to him, but because you don't want to do it. And then it's another thing to get mad at him when he doesn't do it. It makes no sense. Thank you for the $20 from the devil. Thank you, brother. Be glad your what? Excretory system works the way it does, Father God? What the fuck does that mean, dude? Is that some kind of a threat? I don't understand.
It actually is.
That my
Meanwhile,
poop
Mike
system?
is just laughing uncomfortably as it happens, but he also
Yeah, Mike's kind of a pussy, you know. Like, and no offense, because I know Mike is friends with George, and again, I saw him on the podcast, and human excretory system includes organs that facilitate the removal of nitrous wastes from poo-poo system. Okay, and you know, not to be crude, but like, you know, Logan's obviously like an inconsiderate piece of shit that's like completely business brained. Then you have George, who's like he's like a very sensitive person, right? And then you have Mike, that's like in the middle. And he tries to play both sides, but he leans more towards Logan's side, at least you know, above the scenes. And then behind the scenes, though, he doesn't seem to advocate particularly strongly. So it's like he sounds like, oh, he probably does care about George and is a friend, but he's also kind of a pussy and doesn't set up like reasonable boundaries or like fight back enough against Logan, you know. And it's like, I understand the concept again of like, well, I don't want to push too hard, maybe I'll lose a business opportunity. But you know, you have to get to a point in your life where, you know, especially with stuff like this, where you have to you know, you have to like live or die. You have to like set a firm boundary on like a value that you have, you know, especially when you're in a successful space. It's not like you're somebody working at McDonald's that has to deal with some kind of harassment. You're somebody that's a little more public. You have the ability to set like a firm boundary if you want and advocate for your friends better. Thank you for the $2 from Breathe and Relax. Puppy, did you hear about the lawyer who gooned alive? No, no idea. What?
also recommended George to smell the PB. You know, he egged it on or whatever, so it's kind of his fault too. And also, I gotta say this, but Bobby is so lucky that he did the shit to George, you know, a guy with, you know, more patience than the average man, I'd say. Because a normal man would smack this guy.
No, I don't know if George... I was gonna say George Bush. Will Smith's a normal man. He's Jada's cuck. Let's be real.
His face so fucking hard. The second that thing got anywhere near him. And
That's not necessarily true. I mean, I think that a normal man would be like, "Don't do that to me." Like, and then if you do that, I will. Like, I'll have to hit you. And then if they ignore it, then you hit them, right? Like, usually it comes with a warning first.
don't get me started on a girl. A girl would probably just call the police and have you arrested for sexual harassment.
Try to take your phone out, girl. Okay, sorry.
So, you know, let's not pretend this is a funny joke, okay? It is disgusting, and he just continues to make...
If it could have been funny if he was in a room full of people who like actually thought that humor was funny. Does that make sense? Like, this is the type of humor that could have been okay if like George also made the same jokes as Bobby, and he liked showing his dick to other dudes for fun. know. But it's very clear that this is like way over the line, and Bobby just continuously pushes it.
Make it worse.
I have to grab your head.
No.
It smells good.
Now, I get that this is part of Bobby's humor or whatever, and this is part of the act, right? Bobby, obviously, his whole shtick is that he wants to make people feel uncomfortable. But what we're arguing over here is that he's obviously taking things too.
I mean, you'd read the room. Like I said, this could have been funnier, I guess, if it was like a room full of people who were fine with that kind of thing. But nobody in that room was okay with it, and it's very clear. So when you do that type of on-the-line boundary-pushing humor, you need to make sure that the people you're in the room with are okay with the boundary being pushed. Like, and clearly they weren't.
Too far. This is not funny for George.
And if he had just gotten up and be like, yeah, smell my dick, and pulled his pants, like, I'm just fucking with you, and he stopped there, it could have been funny. But he's pushing like so far. He's pushing as hard as possible. He's constantly violating somebody's boundaries. And again, people, I know I say it's a joke, but like if you have this, you know, grown, 40-year-old man that's sitting here trying to shove his dick in a guy's face for a joke, you expect me to believe that somebody that has this boundary issue wouldn't possibly have a boundary issue 20 years ago when it comes to hiring a 13-year-old prostitute and raping her? Like, it sounds like a stretch, but obviously the lack of respect for a boundary is there. The consistent joke that he's made is there. He's a creepy little fuck. So I believe he did it.
Of course, it's funny for the two jackasses sitting on the couch over there, but that's Logan and Mike. They're Dumb and Dumber.
Hey, don't insult Dumb and Dumber.
It's Mr. Crypto Scam and Mr. Logan's AI robot servant assistant. I don't
That's funny.
think they should be the standard as the opinion on this shit, okay? They witness a sexual assault on their best friend who complained.
Would it be considered sexual assault? I'm just like hesitant about that word because I feel like that's so loaded. But I guess it would be kind of considered that. Is it? Or is it sexual harassment? I feel like it's sexual harassment. But whatever. I'm sick of semantics.
About it, and they want to fire him and discredit him and humiliate him. I don't know, as a normal person...
Yeah. And I think a lot of us jumped on that bandwagon back then making fun of George for this. You know, I remember I was, and this guy probably was too. Like, it was, you know... And then that's afterwards is when I saw like the Bobby Lee joke, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then you kind of just like the mythology of Bobby Lee, like it pretty much broke like last year, right? Like everybody's like, oh, this guy's cool, he's so funny, yada yada yada, and then it just kind of the bubble burst, and you're like, wait a minute, this guy's fucking gross, you know?
Watching this from a third-person perspective is just not funny to me. Eventually, George gives in here. He obviously doesn't want to get fired with Logan staring at him and breathing down his neck over there, so he's kind of just forced to do it. First to get up close and take a whiff. And yeah, people really think this is comedy. That's crazy. They think this guy is hilarious for this. Now, you gotta understand that the context makes it 10 times worse because this entire podcast, George was being repeatedly disrespected. Bobby was purposely degrading him and looking the other way the entire time. Then when George tells like a deeply emotional story about his life...
Well, it's a little bit... The positioning of the couches was a little bit weird that they put him over here, you know what I mean? Like, because he's gonna obviously look at the two people talking most of the time, but
he makes fun of it, you know, because that's Bobby's whole thing, you know, poking fun at pretty much everything, even if it's like deep and meaningful to you.
Honestly, if I was not Christian, I'd probably be suicidal. And it was really, really bad. I never told anybody about it. For me to like, dude, like I didn't even know I was gonna be with my best friends doing a podcast where, and I don't mean this in a
I'd probably make fun of this too. Not to be rude. Depends on the context, but if we're sitting here having like a fun little time and you start trauma dumping on me, I'm probably gonna make fun of you.
Way, but like, dude, this put me on a very strong map. So I'm
yeah. Bobby Lee is basically like the Asian Andy Dick. I mean, I agree with that. So
very like blessed, but I didn't know I was gonna be here. So
it's like that's. You done?
And if you think that's all comedy, he also grabs George's dick.
Well, some of that. So here's the thing: like, not everything that happened in that interview, I'm sure, was like Bobby was a bad person for, but it's like the overall collective of like constantly like boundary pushing. Like that. He probably could, like, I don't know the context of George saying that, but it could have been like a fucking trauma dump, and he could have been like, okay, we moving on from this. This isn't really what I'm here for. You don't have to listen to somebody's traumatic story. You know. So like I don't really care that he made fun of the guy's trauma or whatever, you know. You just had to tell a comedian about it, but again, it's the touching, that's the touching, and it's all that other shit
repeatedly, so much so that even in Logan's final edit of the podcast, you can see
that's a bigger deal. It's that they removed a ton of stuff that made Bobby look like a bad person.
George covered his private parts with his hands because he's so tired of Bobby grabbing his repeatedly. I don't really know how anyone justifies that because, you know, if that happened to me, I'm punching him in the face and I'm not even a violent person, right? That's just way out of line. And obviously he wouldn't dare do this to a girl.
Yeah, I mean, like, see, there's so many different dynamics. Thank you so much for the $2 from Clifford. Okay. I'm just gonna have to hide you from the channel because I don't like your name. But thanks for the $2. Anyway, yeah, there's a lot going on. Bobby Lee is obviously the biggest issue here because he's pushing boundaries too far and he's not reading the room correctly. Logan clearly has a lot of pull in this scenario and wants to make sure that Bobby is comfortable and stays on as much as possible because he wants to have more guests on and he's just completely focused on that business kind of move. Mike's like a pussy, and then George seems like he's like a pushover a little bit and doesn't affirm his own boundaries, and part of that's because of Logan, the atmosphere Logan's created, and there's so many different things. Like I said, like again, if it was me, I would set the firm boundary of like, you'd stop, like don't do that. Like that's pretty much it, and then it would get physical if it needed to. I wouldn't want it to, but Bobby Lee's probably the type of person that if you're not a 13-year-old girl, he wouldn't like he would actually, you know, back down if you said stop, you know.
Although he has done plenty of weird, creepy shit with women too, some of which we'll go over in this video as well right after this clip.
Hey there, if you like the clip, make sure to subscribe.
I love this clip,
Okay.
Logan, particularly the part where it exposes you as a horrible person as well for going along with this. I'm calling it right now. This clip is getting deleted very soon. Also, can you imagine Logan's thought process over here? Imagine uploading this to your Clips channel. This is a separate clip, by the way. I didn't take it from the main podcast. This is on his fucking impulsive Clips channel.
Well, I guess he thought it was funny too.
Only this part where George is getting a in his face, because to Logan this is just a funny event over here. Even
Well, I think that Logan probably doesn't care about boundaries. I'm not saying that he's like a predator or anything. He just seems like the kind of person who's completely fine, like money and business oriented, and does not care about like reasonable assertion of boundaries. To him, he's going to be like, whatever people think is like what I will say is acceptable. So if we were all accepting of this behavior, he'd be like, this is okay. But people are actually like, no, this is, like most people, I like to think, will filter what's going on around them through their morals first, not the morals of other people, you know? Like, hey, what is okay for me? And what do I think is okay based on my life experience versus like, what do you guys think? You know, they're constantly parsing his audience. Like, what do you guys think? This is probably okay. You probably don't care, right? I did film a guy hanging from a tree. Was it this one or was it the other one? I don't remember. They both look the same. Let's just pretend they're the same person. Who cares? All white people look the same anyway. Just kidding.
after George said he was uncomfortable with it and literally walked off the podcast, still then Logan has no, you know, sense of morals over here, no sense of obligation to his best friend or anything like that. But this is the Japan forest guy, so obviously you can't expect any morals from him. Now we move on to a more creepy.
I mean, it's funny because I made the same joke. You know, but it's hard to move on for because you'd be like, oh, that happened so long ago. It's like, yeah, but he's still continuously making problems fundamentally with boundary issues, right? Like that's what that is. Again, this filming of that forest is a boundary issue. That was Logan. It's all the same person, dude.
Part. Basically, we're just gonna go over
Logan,
some
Jake.
of Bobby's old clips over here.
Jake,
all right,
38.
here we go. Start off with an interview
Logan,
he does
I don't care.
where he constantly tries to kiss this woman over here and her ankles, and she literally runs away, and he still ends up kissing her.
Yeah.
God, it's so cold.
Charlie's scared. Charlie's a little scared.
I usually enjoy sitting next to the guest because
Yeah, why won't you sit next to me? It's rude.
it's not rude.
I requested it. I called my agent. I want to sit next to you.
Okay, right off the bat,
Maybe because he creeps her out.
she sits away from him and she makes it clear that she's uncomfortable. I don't know if Bobby is trying to make a move on her before or something, or that she's just seen all the other clips of him harassing a bunch of female hosts and trying to kiss them. He has some sort of weird kissing.
He's got that Vosh energy. He seems like the kind of guy that would just like wait for you to get a little too drunk at a party and then kind of wear you down, you know?
Fetish that it's like one of his sticks or whatever, where he'll just kiss people that are uncomfortable with it. In my world, we call that harassment, but apparently that's a Bobby stick.
Come on, good to see you.
Well, I mean, I feel bad for this woman. Like, again, the network let him on after seeing that behavior. They should have made a hard stance of like, no, thank you. You know?
You were on paternity leave last time, right? It's good to see you. I love it. I lived in Europe for a while. That's how we kissed.
That is how you.
My
that's how we
face is
Did he
wet.
lick you?
Fine. I don't have the bird flu.
Okay, starting off strong over there. Kiss the host that purposely sat away from you to avoid you. And moreover, leave your wet mouth on her face. Anyways, Bobby fans will be like, he's so charming. That was so charming. It's part of the joke. It's part of the humor.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people will constantly justify everything that Bobby Lee does, and they'll complain about it. Oh, it's just a joke. You don't understand humor, Papa Gut. My illustrious TikTok career begs to differ. Okay,
You don't understand. You don't.
guys, I'm a professional comedian. Okay, I studied under. I went to the same school as Vince Vaughn. I have my own comedy club, literally in L.A. Okay.
Get it? Oh, I mean, yeah, I guess I don't get the humor, but it just gets worse and worse.
No, but my face is still wet. I feel you.
Did he
on my
lick you?
face.
What
No,
happened?
It's fine.
There's a wet kiss?
There's like little pecks, and then there's a kiss where you latch on and it gets a
Yeah.
little wet. That's that kind of kiss.
I'm marking you. You're mine now forever. That's how, you've never had athlete's foot?
No.
Oh, would you run and... No?
Yes,
Okay.
but I keep my feet clean.
I'm a little
and-
dirty, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
You thought you can get away by sitting
Oh,
over
God,
there?
I love this.
I mean, what's this guy doing to stop it? You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck's... I'm not, obviously Bobby seems to... Well, Bobby's a primary problem, then the network's another problem, but what's this guy doing? Do something about it. What happened to men? You know what I mean? We always sit here and we're like, look at these trans people, blah, blah, blah. Like, what happened to men? Like, don't be transphobic about it. But I'm sitting here, I'm like, what is the Fox News anchor doing to stop this fucking creep from kissing her? Like, what happened to men? Like, that's where my real what happened to men is. Who cares if you look feminine? Why aren't you standing up for people? What the fuck's the matter with you?
Morning show's my favorite.
Ha, guys, very funny. Ha. You know what, guys? I'm starting to understand the humor. You know what would be even more funny? If Bobby actually chased her around after she tried to run away from him, and then he forced her to sit down, threatening to never come to another interview if she doesn't sit down, and then he kisses her ankle after she explicitly says no. Imagine he did that. Oh, wait, he does.
You don't feel good? You want me to do it again? What am I... What? Where are you going?
Do
Where are
not
you
kiss
going?
my
All right,
ankle,
okay,
my
okay,
ankle
bad.
bone.
My bad. I'm sorry, come back. Everything's fine. Everything's fine, everybody.
Yeah, like, what's this guy doing? Do something about it, pussy.
Everything's fine. Come back. I won't assault you anymore.
No, I don't trust you.
Why?
Because I can see you
From a
jumping
mile
on
away,
me
and I see you too. If you get up again, I swear to God, I'm never gonna come back here. Okay?
And what are the producers doing to stop this? Like, I don't understand how the entire system is failing the situation.
Yeah,
I
really.
just want to.
Dude, this is not comedy. I don't understand how Bobby fans are like, this is the funniest shit ever. This is a full-grown woman running away from you, explicitly telling you, like, she sat away from you. She tried to leave the set of the interview over there, and she explicitly said, don't kiss my ankle or whatever. And in regular parts of the world, we call this a creepy guy
Well, yeah.
who can't take a hint. Right? This is just harassment. You are clearly crossing.
Again, it's not just him. It's this guy here. It's the producer behind the scene. It's the fucking cameraman. It's everybody.
Her boundaries over here, but it's just Bobby, right, guys? He's a funny guy. He can do no wrong. Everything he does is just a joke. He can get arrested for a million things, but that will also be a joke, obviously. And it seems like Bobby is just
Wow, look at how uncomfortable that they look. Let's just watch this again.
for a million things.
Let's take us out. Let's see how uncomfortable they look. Wow. Well, both of them are truly uncomfortable. Yep. Incredible. Look at this. What incredible. Yeah. That's like true true discomfort, trying to mask true discomfort.
Their clip.
I'm so sorry. Can I say that on TV? I'm so
Bobby,
sorry.
let's talk about your hair. Can we talk about what is it with the Addison Improv guys with the comedians? It's like in the
A little sneak attack,
Yeah, nice sneak attack, man. You totally got.
It's crazy. I've never seen these clips before. It's really interesting that nobody stopped him from acting like in this degenerate way.
Her. Yeah, I will say one thing Bobby fans do have right is that he is a professional at making people feel uncomfortable, and you might think that's part of his.
Yeah, I'll see this podcast thing going on, and I'll just like skip right through it on like TikTok and stuff. I have no interest. I don't really like this guy either, just because he's friends with Bobby Lee. I'm not doing. I know you're like, let's get guilt by association. Well, you're somebody's best friend and do a podcast with them. Yes, like I think that easier. I don't give a shit. Like I mean, I'd like to like this guy because he's white, right? And I love whites. I'm just fucking. But no, man. Like, you can do a podcast with the biggest fucking scumbag I've ever seen. You know,
stick or whatever. But I don't think that's something to brag about. That you make people feel uncomfortable. Like, he may be a funny guy, but it just seems like he has no moral compass or no boundaries. And he's just a complete and throughout clown. Like, I get the fact that he's a clown and he's
but I muted that, and it's like it's not muting.
trying to, make everybody laugh or whatever. But there's other ways to do that than invading people's personal space. And if you do that to the wrong person, I feel like you will get arrested. Now, I've saved
Or hit, yeah.
the best for last here.
This is going to be the Tijuana story.
I'm pretty sure you guys knew that this was coming.
Again, the humor, the uncomfortable humor wouldn't be so bad if he would read the room. If he pushed a little bit, and when they expressed discomfort, he's like, I'm just fucking with you, it wouldn't have been an issue. But it's the fact that it's so aggressive to people, and it just like constantly pushes through their boundaries. Like, that's the real problem. It becomes unfunny. It's not like funny.
If you've watched Bobby, but there was a story he told once upon a time in Tijuana.
He used to tell that story all the time. That was like his big to-go-to story for like years.
And this is a really popular story, but basically people have called him out multiple times for this. But allegedly, in the story, he allegedly admits to forcing himself on an underage prostitute. And
13-year-old. He literally says Natalie Portman from The Professional. She's 13 in that movie.
Bragging about it. And he actually retells the story multiple times. And one time is on Theo Vaughn's podcast. And even Theo is just very, very uncomfortable with it. Take a look.
If I say this story and you think, honestly, if you think this is going to ruin me, will you cut it out?
Yes, I will.
You promise me?
Yes.
I was walking down Hooker Alley and there was a girl.
For what?
To get a girl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There was a girl that she seemed scared.
Yeah.
That's the one I wanted.
Oh.
I stick.
And how's the woman feeling? What is she wearing?
Well, she's not a woman. I've heard him tell the story like probably 3 different times already.
Is she?
And in most of the stories, he said, because this is the thing, this story changes. When he started telling it originally, it was like he was walking down this alley and he was looking for a prostitute, and like he saw this one girl who looked just like Natalie Portman from The Professional, 13-year-old girl. He's like, I have to have her. So he paid like $60 for her, and they gave him like an old, ratty towel. And so he went into the room with the girl, and she started crying uncontrollably. So he just like power fucked her. That's his words. Until he finished. That's his story.
I don't really remember what she's wearing. I think she was wearing like a Hello Kitty shirt. You know what I mean?
For kids, you can't put them in something called Hello Kitty and not expect perverts to show up.
This is not a kid, man. This is an adult.
Good.
This is an adult. So don't say kid.
You, in the beginning, Nick, do you think it sounded like he was talking about a kid or an adult?
Who?
I think he said girl, which is ambiguous, but...
Okay.
Woman.
Yeah, so the first time he actually told the story, he was definitely talking about a kid.
Like the first 20 times. Again, this was apparently like a big thing on the Opie and Anthony show. He would tell a lot.
I think might be a clip out there where he even clarifies like the age or something, but I haven't looked into that. And the first time he actually told a story, there was actually no real tone of sarcasm at all. It seemed like it was a story he was ashamed of and he wanted to move past it. But
that wasn't the first time he told it. I believe that was like the millionth time he told it, and people started to give him slack for it. So he's like, "Oh, it's the evolution of this joke. It gets like less and less confident as time goes on. And instead of just not telling it anymore, he continues to tell it. So
somehow,
and frankly, the reason why I think he continued to tell it until he eventually stopped is because I think that every time he retold the story, especially with the tone shift of the like social atmosphere, he wanted to retell history. He wanted to rewrite history. So every time he told the joke, it was a little different. The girl got a little older. It got a little less aggressive. It got a little like less that. Over and over again. And that's why he continued to tell the story over and over and over and over again. At least that's what I think.
Kept bragging about it repeatedly by retelling the story, and it's like he's proud he got away with it, which is very, very disturbing. And
I don't know if I would say that's necessarily why, but sure.
The next part is truly horrific if it actually happened.
And I look at her face and she's crying.
Oh.
Snot bubbles, the whole thing.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah. So I feel bad. I'm a good guy, right? I feel bad. So I do what any good guy would do. I start power her.
What is happening?
Yeah, Bobby, that's really funny, actually. It's so funny that I'm pretty sure the audience will be laughing at this, right? The entire comment section of this video should be laughing, so let's take a look what they think. What a depressing story on every single level. Why would you tell the story? That's a to-the-grave story if ever there was one.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think that as a society, there are moments where I go like, wow, we have gotten a little soft and things have gotten a little too sensitive and this and that. But then I remember it's moments like this where we look at this type of behavior and go like, wow, this is disgusting. Where I'm like, you know what? We are on the right track still. I'm happy we're a little more sensitive as a society. Maybe we're getting a little too... All right, listen, in the middle of this, in the middle, like right at the end of the segment, actually, my stream crashed. There was like a storm outside and everything, so my computer shut off. So let's just finish out the little bit that's left.
What they think. What a depressing story on every single level. Why would you tell the story? That's a to-the-grave story if ever there was one. She seems scared. That's the one I wanted. What the frick? Bro opens with the sob story, hoping we'll accept it as an excuse for raping children. I started out as a...
What do you say, graping?
busboy too. You don't see me diddling kids. Can someone please explain what the joke is supposed to be in the story?
Yeah, the joke is, haha, I assaulted a child, a literal 13-year-old child, yeah.
All for dark humor, but there's no punchline here. It's just a story of him describing a young girl.
Well, his punchline to him is that he power fucked the girl. Because it's funny to him that she was really upset about interacting with him because she was a 13-year-old prostitute. And when she started crying, it's funny that he subverts our expectations because you'd think he'd stop by just finishing up as fast as he could, like a really funny guy.
And then taking her to a sex motel. Bobby has always seemed off to me, and stuff like this just makes me feel justified in it. Now, child or no child, taking advantage of someone who's so clearly desperate is sickening. You're not a good person if you can talk about something like this so casually with little to no remorse. That was a fucking kid, and he's been trying to paint the picture, insinuating it was our first time and how much trouble this could get him in. The Hello Kitty shirt. It's like he wants us to know. Anyways, Bobby has actually responded to this, and he says that it's a joke.
Yeah, well, like, what was this? Maybe a year ago, he said, no, it was just a joke, blah, 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 blah. I just don't believe it. You can believe whatever you want. I think that he was telling a part of his life that he thought was kind of funny. Or he could say it in a funny way. Maybe he carries some guilt about it. Doesn't really matter to me. It's fucking disgusting.
Obviously, that's his defense for anything. Even
telling the joke to me suggests that, if it is true, that he has no real shame in the event because he keeps telling the story. Like, if that was something that I did, which I never have done, I would take that to the grave, right? But he's going off about it. He's talking about it.
Thrusting a dick in a man's face, grabbing his private parts, kissing women who run away from you and are clearly uncomfortable. It's all a joke, guys. Everything he does in his entire life is a joke, it seems. But, you guys can decide what you actually think. But yeah, that's it. Let me know what you guys thought, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
All right, cool video, man.